Well, it looks like the Federal Reserve is about to start printing money because institutions are now talking about not FOMO, not SOMO, but rather TOMO. Yes, markets are now talking about temporary open market operations coming, and that a TOMO-like facility to support money markets and reserves is coming to make sure we don't have a liquidity crisis in markets. Now, not only do we need to talk about why that's bullish, but we got to talk about expectations for the rate cut tomorrow and what J. Powell might say, as well as look at the summary of economic projections, because the last time we looked at the summary of economic projections, I said it was bullish, that we would break through 600 on the Qs. And you can actually look back at my sheet. In green is what we wrote down last time. Last time we looked at this, we said this is dovish, it is bullish rates down, it's bullish Qs going through 600, and folks, that's exactly what happened. Now we're gonna talk about what we expect to happen tomorrow, but let's first get started with why did this skyrocket? Why all of a sudden did we see Bitcoin skyrocket right at 7 a.m.? Why did we see Circle go full circle and start rebounding off the floor? Why are we seeing SIM come back to 64? Why are we seeing Tesla rocket off 433.99? Why are we seeing CoreWeave reject, but actually get to and then reject within 3 cents of my line? Mind you, all of these right here were those, well, with the exception of Bitcoin, we just watched this one, but all of these that I just mentioned, Circle, SIM, Tesla, CoreWeave, all mentioned in our alpha report this morning. You could use coupon code Santa reinvest at meetkevin.com if you want, but we got to answer why. So why did this happen? This bounced right at 7 a.m. We covered it in our course live stream this morning. Remember, you get lifetime access. Was because of JOLTS data actually really impressing. Usually this JOLTS data comes in pretty damn close to expectations. Not only did today's numbers not come in close to expectations, but they smashed. They absolutely smashed. It was really good. The numbers were so bullish that not only did we compare them to the ADP numbers, but we updated the bear bull scale to a 5.6. The numbers are bullish. We updated the bear bull scale because of JOLTS and the weekly ADP data, which really didn't get a lot of news. JP Morgan says consumer is still healthy. We'll see. Well, hopefully the consumer can step up and we can start getting job growth again like what we saw in Canada. Hopefully that's not all part-time. But you got to think about this with the ADP report. What did we get with ADP? Weekly ADP, which got like no attention this morning, suggested that we are growing at 4,750 jobs per week. Now that initially you might be like, Kevin, that's paltry. That's terrible. That sounds like nothing. But it works out to about 19,000 per month. A little bit more because week versus month, a little bit more than that. So call it about 20,000 per month. And as long as we're positive over zero, I think we're above the break-even rate of employment. Now, I'm not saying there aren't problems in the labor market. There definitely, we got to pay attention to these. That's why we're just slightly above mid-range. Well, let's put it this way. I'm adding stocks to my top 10 list of stocks to buy. We got a full list of top 10 stocks out. We just added number 10 this morning. That's doing well, and so is our number 9 from last week. These are great. But you can see those all at meetkevin.com in the alpha report. But anyway, this 20,000 jobs roughly on a monthly, if break even's around 0 to 20K, we're basically at break even, which means the unemployment rate should stay stable as long as the participation rate doesn't skyrocket. Now, if a lot of people go back to work, the participation rate could skyrocket, or we get more layoffs, of course, then we're gonna have problems and we're gonna have poopy doopies. That's why you wanna be cautious, and it's exactly why I think we're now not just talking FOMO, fear of missing out, or SOMO, sadness of missing out, but that the Fed is going to turn on the TOMO money printer. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Now, why would the Fed turn on the money printer for TOMO, and how does that work? Well, in part, I believe it's because I think when we get the summary of economic projections tomorrow, I think we're going to see a bump in the real GDP projections for 2026. I think they'll bump that up, and so I'll go ahead and make my prediction right here. So my prediction, and I'll make a note that green was September, red is 12.9. Okay. So what do we have here? 12.9. There we go. Okay. So my prediction is that they'll actually write this up to 2.0 tomorrow. So I think this is going to go to 2. I think this will actually go to 4.6 for the end of next year. And that's going to be in anticipation of the labor force participation rate going up due to participation rising. And then I also think we'll have a bump on inflation. And I think that they're going to take this PCE level, maybe not this number. This might go like 2.7. But I actually think core has the potential of indicating, I'll go 2.7 as well. I think a little bump on both of these. Core might go 2.8, but I'll go 2.7 here. We also, previously we anticipated 5 cuts by the end of 2027. If you included September, that would be accurate, but I actually think that's been revised more to about 4 cuts. That would be October, December, and 2 in 2025. That's sort of the soft landing expectation right now for the summary of economic projections. This would be the, 4 rate cuts of OCT, DECE, 2 in 2025 equals mostly a soft landing play. The issues would be twofold, labor force participation rising or layoffs rising. Not seeing that right now, which is good. Again, the ADP numbers this morning were great, and the JOLTS numbers, the fact that we saw job openings up, great. Now, job quits were down, so people are nervous about the job market. But layoffs, not enough to really cause a big shakeup yet. Hopefully, knock on wood, it stays that way. And job openings rising was a really bullish surprise. And so it's holding that 10-year yield a little bit elevated, which is contributing a little bit to funding stress. Now remember, the Federal Reserve stopped QT. QT is over, right? QT ended on December 1st. It's been about 9 days. So not only did quantitative tightening end, and we see this repo stress hasn't shown up since December 2nd, which could just be residual overnight from December 1st, but we have not seen a single bar chart here show up on the repo facility, suggesting maybe ending quantitative tightening was a good thing. But now we're talking TOMO. So what the hell is TOMO? FOMO, SOMO, TOMO. No. It sounds like that comedian, who's like, so if COMB is comb, what's BOMB? Boom? No. Bomb. I love those grammar things. I think they're hilarious.
No.
But anyway, if you go to this, TOMO, in honor of him who's now dead, that comedian. But anyway, not FOMO, not SOMO, but TOMO. These are temporary open market operations. Now, this is not technically quantitative easing, okay? It's technically QE light, or QE temporary, right? It's sort of like overnight QE is the way to think about it. Basically, the Fed says, we're going to print money to support overnight borrowing, but we're going to pay off that borrowing right away. And the printing, we're going to remove the printing right away. So it's kind of like, all right, basic human analogy. We ran the vacuum cleaner like Luigi from Luigi's Mansion. Sucked up as much money as we could, okay? Turned off the vacuum cleaner, all right? And now we're like, all right, boys, we're putting the vacuum away. And then there's a little bit of private credit stress. And so what are they doing? They're just sort of like, vroom, 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 like they're revving the vacuum on and off, like really quickly, like, that's kind of QE light. So it's like, but you also have the blower setting. So it flips between vacuum and blower. So it's like, blow, vacuum, blow, vacuum. It's weird. I don't know if the analogy is any good, but the bottom line of it is it's designed to support the liquidity challenges that you're seeing at banks, aka private credit. Because we know private credit is basically sucking on the titty of the banks. And if private credit is sucking on the banks, and the banks need liquidity, when the banks run out of liquidity, private credit runs out of liquidity. That's not good. But if the banks get overnight liquidity, private credit holds up, and everything's Gucci, so you can actually grow GDP. That's the goal. Now, Morgan Stanley is really bullish on robots, okay? I'm just going to throw this call in here. Okay, look at this. You ready for this? China Humanoid Robotics Survey. We believe AI-enabled robotics will help usher in a third industrial revolution. Well, imagine now, TOMO plus robotic revolution. And if you get the soft landing, bullish catalyst, anyone?
Bullish catalyst.
Yeah. How about Santa Rally or coupon code Santa Reinvest? Lifetime access to Meekev membership. No, really, it's actually incredible. as long as, we don't fall off a cliff with the labor market. But look at this. Our GDP is probably about $25 trillion. And they're saying that AI-enabled robots alone could generate $25 trillion of GDP alone from robots. So it's basically like creating another America. It's literally like doubling today's America. It's like doubling America 2025. And think about how big the American economy is. You're doubling that. Like my venture capital company, we invested in Aptronic, the humanoid robotics play. I personally invested in them when they were like really risky and about to go bankrupt and almost out of money at like a $400 million valuation. Then when they stabilized, we invested in them at like a 1.7 valuation. At that point, we had our VC. We invested in them there. And now the information is reporting that they're worth somewhere around $5 billion. And I wouldn't be surprised if they keep going because it's sort of like a discount Tesla. And given Tesla's valuation, a very discount Tesla. And, there's talk that Aptronic actually helped set up Tesla's robotics, but, who knows? That could be just rumor mill. So anyway, it is really interesting, this robotics play. And so this broadly is long-term bullish, but the problem is I do agree. I think China is going to eat our lunch on the manufacturing, but that's okay because even if China eats our lunch on manufacturing, who's going to buy the robots, right? China might eat our lunch making the robots, but who will buy the robots? Americans! Americans will buy the robots. It'll make us more productive. Makes Americans more productive, right? So we benefit from the productivity benefits of the robots. So I'm very excited about that, and obviously so is Morgan Stanley. But anyway, going back to TOMO over here, the Federal Reserve tomorrow, we broadly expect them to cut. This data this morning could be enough to keep Powell a little bit hawkish, so expect a little bit of volatility. But really, if they announce any kind of TOMO facility, it's just pure bullish. And so I think this talk about TOMO, along with like a soft landing style data, is what really led to this rocket ship in like Bitcoin and asset prices. Even Tesla. I think the Morgan Stanley piece by on robotics was huge for this. So it's absolutely phenomenal. And CoreWeave, coming back to its 90 line is huge. Although the one thing that's weird today is that NVIDIA, while it gained yesterday on news about selling to China, if you look, you're within about $1.50 of where you were before the China news, which kind of suggests that there's, and I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it. We believe in, you made it to the end of this segment, so I'll reveal it, but we believe that the big PP plays.
Big PP.
Right now, this is my sort of pro take, if you will, no guarantees. But I think, the noobs right now are saying, hey, Kevin, like, it's, we still got to be in all the chips, That may be true. Like, NVIDIA's valuation is cheap, okay? They're like a 1.6 peg. But I think the pro is saying, where's the money being made from AI? And it's in part Google, it's in part AI software companies, but you have to pick the good ones. And so I think we're transitioning from chips to the AI software. And I think that's one of the reasons Apple is booming so much, which is ironic because while Apple's got the software moat, they have basically no AI. Now, to some extent, they're a little bit insulated from the AI spend, and people believe this is really a chart of the hope that Apple will finally adopt good AI, right? But I think that's the next phase of where we sit. Now, I obviously also feel so optimistic about this. I don't want a recession because I honestly think as long as we don't have a recession, we can hopefully, knock on wood, IPO our product faster, right? We got our, Invest in House Act little disclaimer there. There's risk with every investment. But I'm of the impression we look at our app and our software team and we're like, dude, the things that we can do, not only once we get our Reinvest AI app out this month, and y'all start using it and we add more features, but beyond that, we move into new real estate AI verticals. just our roadmap is crazy in terms of some of the plans that we have. So we're really, really excited. And so in a biased manner, I don't want a recession. However, I'm aware of the risks and being conservative because I also, you should always be looking at investing as a long-term outlook, right? Look at it as, hey, how can I invest for the next 10 to 50 years? For House Hack, those are my 50-year plays. My top 10 stocks to buy list, those are my 10-year plays. Those are stocks I'm looking at going like, I wanna hold these for the next 10 years, and how can I get more exposure to them? So, pretty excited. But this is good number. These are good numbers. We'll talk Fed tomorrow. We'll be covering it live. And overall, I gotta say,
bullish catalyst.
Yeah. So there you have it.
Kevin's somebody we consider. Kevin is fantastic.
Kevin is very talented, but I don't know if it's going to be him, but he's a very talented guy.
I think that Kevin's a brilliant guy, and I think that we'd all be very lucky to have him.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.